And our top story today, red meat consumption is associated with increased type 2 diabetes risk.
Joao, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thanks, Jeff. Nice to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you. And let's just jump right in because you and the team put together a lot of research and the connection between red meat consumption and type 2 diabetes. How do these two things connect? How does red meat and eating red meat, even a small serving, connect with maybe your predisposition to type 2 diabetes?
Well, we know that type 2 diabetes is mostly due to impaired insulin, especially impaired like beta cell function. So red meat is usually high in saturated fat and low in polyunsaturated fat. And we saw studies have shown that saturated fat can reduce the function of insulin, which result in type 2 diabetes. And we also know that red meat is also high in heme iron, which will increase oxidative stress and also impair the insulin function. And our paper also talked about processed meat in particular. And we know that for processed red meat, there is also a high content of nitrates and also their byproducts, and that will promote insulin resistance, which is also lead to diabetes.
When you talk about, and I want to get into processed meat in a second, but when you talk about meat, I mean that can mean a lot of things. Does it mean meat from, for example, from a cow, or are there other types of meat that fall into this category within your research?
Yeah, so when we talk about red meat, we for most of the time we are referring to unprocessed red meat, but that will include pork, beef, or lamb. Yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of what is processed red meat, and how do you distinguish between the two? Because a lot of people out there going to their supermarket, look, without knowing the difference, without maybe looking at the label, I may not know the difference.
Mm-hmm. Well, unprocessed red meat is mostly those fresh meat from the supermarket, but processed meat are more of those something like bacon or sausage, salami. They were pre-processed, like they were aged or after processing. Yeah.
Okay, understood. So it's more like kind of, and that's where the nitrates come in, because it's something that's prepared in a factory where unprocessed is just basically from, I guess, farm to table with some minimal steps. Xiao, what is the takeaway from this? Because I mean, you know, we went through this. I'm a child of the 70s. I grew up in the 70s, and everyone during the 70s had red meat, and then, you know, lately it's been go away from saturated fat and move towards a plant-based diet. But what's the takeaway here? Do we need to change our diet completely? Because type 2 diabetes is something that is becoming very prevalent among the diseases in our society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we think it's definitely necessary to change our diet, maybe shift from a more animal-based to a plant-based way. And we know that red meat is associated with type 2 diabetes from our finding, and even a very small amount will increase a huge amount of the risk of type 2 diabetes. But we also saw that if we replace red meat with plant-based proteins such as nuts and legumes, the risk of type 2 diabetes will be reduced. So it's more of a shift of the components of the diet.
Xiao, I need to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about shifting from red meat to a plant-based diet and the nutritional benefits. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Xiao, thanks so much for staying with us. Really appreciate you hanging around for segment number 2 this morning.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, all this talk is actually making me quite hungry, but I think this time I won't get any red meat. Xiao, what about other lean meats? And I know your study really focused on red meat, but since it does come down to saturated and monosaturated or non-saturated fats, could somebody look to change their diet to chicken or another leaner protein other than going to a plant-based diet?
Well, we did take a look at chicken. We assessed the association between if you replace red meat with poultry and its association with type 2 diabetes. But for chicken, the results is not that strong. So particularly if you replace processed red meat with chicken, it's definitely better than eating processed red meat. But if you replace like unprocessed red meat with chicken, the association is pretty null. And also you mentioned the fat content of the meat. We didn't get a chance to assess that in our study, but I know there are other studies that are working on that. That might make some difference, and because of the fatty acids content in lean meat and also those fatty meats. But that's subject for further assessment.
And in terms of the preparation of the meat, does that play a role at all? So, for example, some people, it's football season here in the States. Some people may grill their meat. Others may do other sorts of preparation. Does that have play at all, how the meat is prepared, play at all a role in the predisposition to type 2 diabetes?
I do think that plays some role, but that is out of the scope of our current study. But there are studies investigating the preparation methods, and I do think grilling or like high temperature baking, frying, they're not good.
Yeah, and what's the takeaway? Is the takeaway for Americans to kind of push away from meat and maybe look to, as you said, plant-based foods or leaner meats? Is that the real takeaway, or are there others?
Well, we are not asking people to get rid of meat completely, but we are just asking for a limitation of red meat intake. And based on our results, if you limit your red meat intake under 2 servings per week, that will already lower your risk of type 2 diabetes. And also, in fact, that diet with limited intake of red meat are typical of many traditional diets around the world. For example, people who consume the traditional Mediterranean diet, they ate about the amount of red meat that is associated with lower risk of type 2 diabetes already. And there are abundant evidence have shown that there are a lot of health benefits of red Mediterranean diet. So I just want to say that limiting red meat is realistic and it is healthy.
Yeah, and in terms of next steps for your research, because I would imagine that this is a part of a broader study. You're a clinician. You're not a clinician, but you're a nutrition. You do a lot of nutrition research. What's the follow up to this? How do you follow up this research? How do you build upon it?
Well, I would say this is not the first time we saw this association, and this association has been observed around the world. But to add the certainty of the evidence, we do need more studies in the future, particularly in different parts of the world or in different cultures, different populations, to reaffirm this association. But we think our results from for the American population is pretty solid.
Yeah, we need a lot of help, don't we? I mean, clearly things are trending in the wrong direction. Everyone you talk to that's associated with health, wellness, nutrition, people like yourself doing the research, we're kind of going in the wrong direction as a society. And it's not just people my age; it's younger people in their teens, adolescents, into their early 20s, just getting off on the wrong foot.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, we're going to have to leave it there. Great to see you. Great research as always. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Thank you.
And that wraps up this episode of BRNAM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news and lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content? Then visit our website. We're back again tomorrow with another great edition of BRNAM. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
But if you're tired of the same old...
Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the first lifestyle and wellness network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.